Her hair disgusts me. A teacher said it to an 18-year-old black girl, while the whole class watched. What is that? A rope? She moved closer. Sniffed. Don't you have shampoo? Students laughed. Stand up, let everyone see. The girl did not move. The teacher grabbed the braid and yanked. The girl jumped up. Don't touch me. Oh, now she talks. Scissors came out. Your family never taught you hygiene. I will. Don't touch my hair. But she could not stop it. Snip. A braid fell to the floor. Then another. Then a third. The teacher threw them onto the desk. Now you look like a human being. Tears came. The girl's hand found the jagged edges where her grandmother's braids had been. The teacher thought she had won. She was wrong. 20 miles away, a woman heard the voicemail, put down her file, and pinned a gold badge to her belt. The air smelled like coffee and hair oil and something warm baking 2 houses down. Amara Hayes sat on a floor cushion between her grandmother's knees. The couch cushions were worn soft from years of this exact position. Gospel music drifted from the television, low, steady, like a heartbeat. Grandmother Miriam's fingers moved through Amara's thick, dark hair with the kind of rhythm that only comes from decades of practice. Sectioning, twisting, pulling just tight enough. Each braid locked into place with a soft click of wooden beads at the ends. This was their ritual. Every week. Since Amara was 4 years old, Miriam had been a hairdresser for 31 years before she retired. Braiding was not just something she did. It was something she passed down. And while she worked, she talked. She always talked. Your great-grandma wore her hair just like this, Miriam said, her voice smooth as butter on warm bread. Same pattern, same parting. She had these braids the day she marched in Selma. Cops sprayed water at her head, and those braids held, didn't move an inch. Amara smiled. She had heard the story 100 times. She never got tired of it. While her grandmother braided, Amara sketched in a worn, leather-bound notebook. She drew buildings with impossible angles, women with hairstyles that looked like crowns, faces full of light. She was 18 now, a senior at Ridgewood High. Quiet, but sharp. The kind of student who did not raise her hand often. But when she did, the whole room listened. Her art teacher once called her portfolio museum ready. That portfolio was the reason she had a pending scholarship to the School of the Arts. One interview away from a full ride. From the kitchen, Selena Hayes, Amara's mother, leaned against the counter scrolling through case files on her phone. She was dressed in plain clothes, jeans, a gray pullover. But sitting next to the car keys on the counter by the door were 2 things that told a different story. A gold detective's badge and a holstered sidearm. Both belonging to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. Selena kissed Amara on the forehead on her way out. You look beautiful, baby. Amara touched a freshly finished braid and smiled. Thanks, Mama. The door closed. The gospel music played on. Miriam kept braiding. That was one day. The next morning looked different. Ridgewood High School sat in the suburbs. Red brick, American flag out front. Trimmed hedges along the walkway. Inside, the hallways were polished and wide. Trophy cases lined the walls. College pennants hung from the ceiling near the guidance office. It was the kind of school that looked great in brochures. But Amara was one of a handful of black students in the entire AP track. She knew what that meant. She did not complain about it. She just moved through it. She walked in that morning with her braids swinging, beaded, long, intricate. A classmate in the hallway said, "Yo, Amara, your hair is beautiful." Another one gave her a thumbs up. She smiled. Then she walked into room 214, AP English, Mrs. Victoria Langford's class. Langford had been teaching for 15 years. She spoke in a controlled, sugary voice, the kind that sounded polite until you actually listened to the words. She had a history that nobody put on paper. She once told a black male student his sneakers were distracting to the learning environment. She moved a biracial girl to the back row because her curly hair blocked the whiteboard. She once handed Amara back a personal essay about growing up black in the South and wrote in the margin, a bit heavy-handed, "Try something more universal." Nobody ever filed a formal complaint. Teachers whispered, administrators shrugged, and Langford kept going. That morning, Amara walked into Langford's classroom and sat down in her usual seat, second row by the window. Langford looked up from her desk, her eyes locked onto the braids, the beads, the length, the detail. Her jaw tightened. "Well," she said, her voice thin as paper. "That's certainly a lot going on today, Amara." Amara touched one of her braids. She did not shrink. She was 18, not a child, but she felt it. That shift in the room, that tone. A classmate leaned over. "Your hair looks fire," she whispered. Mrs. Langford tapped her desk twice. "Let's focus, people." The class went on. Shakespeare, thesis statements, paragraph structure. But every few minutes, Langford's eyes drifted back to Amara's hair. A glance, then another, a slow burn. And nobody saw the match. The next morning came with a sky full of gray clouds and the smell of rain on concrete. Amara walked into room 214 and sat down. She pulled out her notebook. Same braids, same beads, same girl. She did not think twice about it, but Mrs. Langford had been thinking about it all night. Before the bell even finished ringing, Langford walked to Amara's desk. She placed a folded piece of paper in front of her, printed, official-looking, with the school seal at the top. Amara opened it. Dress code violation. Hairstyle. Distracting/non-compliant. Below that, a line from the student handbook highlighted in yellow. Accessories that create audible or visual disruption are prohibited during instructional hours. Amara read it twice. Then she looked up. "Mrs. Langford, these are braids. They're not accessories." Langford tilted her head. That sugary voice again. "They have beads, Amara. Beads are accessories. Accessories that make noise or disruptive. You have until tomorrow to remove them or change your hair to something more appropriate." The word hung in the air like smoke. Appropriate. Amara looked at the paper again. Her jaw tightened. She did not cry. She was 18. She had sat through enough of Langford's comments to recognize exactly what this was. Not a dress code issue. A power play. A woman with a red pen and a Xeroxed policy using the rules like a weapon. But Amara also knew how the system worked. She had watched her mother navigate it her entire life. The meetings, the documentation, the careful calm you had to keep when the people in charge made you feel like you were the problem. So she folded the note, slipped it into her bag, and said nothing. She went home that afternoon and told grandmother Miriam. Miriam was standing at the kitchen counter chopping onions. Her knife stopped mid-cut. She set it down slowly, wiped her hands on a dish towel, turned around. "Say that again," Amara repeated it. The note, the highlighted rule, the word appropriate. Miriam's face did not crumble. It hardened like stone setting. "Those braids are not accessories," she said, her voice low and steady. "Those braids are who you are. Your great-grandma wore those braids through tear gas and fire hoses. No teacher in a suburban high school is going to tell my granddaughter they're not appropriate." She picked up the phone and called the school. The front desk answered. Miriam explained, calmly, clearly, the cultural and historical significance of Amara's hairstyle. She cited the Crown Act. She asked to speak with Mrs. Langford directly. "I'll make sure the message gets passed along," the receptionist said. Nobody called back. Not that evening. Not that night. Selena was unreachable. She was deep into a multi-county fraud investigation, the kind that meant long shifts, no signal zones, and phone calls returned late, if at all. Miriam left her a voicemail. "Call me when you can. Something happened at school." She did not want to worry her, not yet. That night, Miriam sat on the edge of Amara's bed. Amara was sketching. Not buildings this time. She was drawing a girl with braids standing alone in a hallway. No one around her. "You wearing your braids tomorrow?" Miriam asked. Amara looked up. "Yes, ma'am." Miriam nodded once. "You wear your crown, baby. Don't you ever take it off for someone who doesn't deserve to touch it." The next morning, Amara walked into Ridgewood High with her braids exactly the way her grandmother had made them. Every bead in place, every twist tight. She held her head high. Not to make a statement, but because she had nothing to be ashamed of. She sat down in room 214, took out her notebook, opened to a fresh page. Mrs. Langford was already at her desk. She looked up when Amara entered. Her eyes went straight to the hair, the beads, the braids. Still there. Her smile did not drop. It vanished. She stood up, smoothed the front of her blouse, walked to the center of the room and spoke. Not to Amara quietly, not at the desk, not in a whisper. She spoke to the entire class. "Amara, I gave you a written warning yesterday. You chose to ignore it. Rules exist for everyone." She paused. "Let the silence do its work. Since your family can't be bothered to comply, I'll handle it myself." She turned back to her desk, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a pair of orange-handled scissors. The class went dead silent. 25 students. Not a single breath. Langford walked toward Amara. Her heels clicked on the linoleum. Sharp. Deliberate. Each step louder than the last. Amara stood up. Her chair scraped the floor behind her. "Don't touch me." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips. She was 18 years old enough to know this was wrong, old enough to name it. But she was also standing in a classroom with a teacher who had 15 years of authority and a principal who had never once taken a student's side over hers. Langford did not stop. By the supply cabinet, Ms. Simone Carter, the teaching assistant, a black woman in her late 20s, stood frozen. Her mouth opened. Her hand gripped the edge of the shelf so hard her knuckles paled. She wanted to speak. She wanted to step forward. But her feet would not move. She thought about her rent, her contract, the last time she had raised a concern and been told to stay in her lane. She said nothing. Langford reached Amara, grabbed a braid near the base, tight, like grabbing a rope. Amara flinched backward, but Langford's grip held. "What is this? Rope?" Langford said, loud enough for the room. She leaned in, sniffed, pulled back with a look of pure disgust. "Do they not have shampoo where you're from?" A few students in the back let out nervous laughs. Langford fed off it. "Sit down," Langford said, "and hold still. You're making a scene." Amara jerked back. "Don't touch my hair." Oh, now she's got something to say. Langford smirked. She tightened her grip. "Your family never taught you basic hygiene, so I will." Then came the sound. Cold metal against warm skin. The scissors pressed flat against the back of Amara's neck. And then that crunch. Not a clean snip. A thick, fibrous tearing. Hair and thread and beads coming apart all at once. A braid fell to the floor. It hit the linoleum with a soft clatter. Beads rolling under the desk like dropped marbles. Nobody moved. Langford cut another. And another. 3 braids. 3 pieces of Amara's grandmother's hands. 3 pieces of her great-grandmother's legacy. Gone. On the floor, between chair legs and backpack straps. Langford tossed the last braid under Amara's desk. It landed on top of her open notebook, right over the drawing of the girl standing alone in a hallway. "There," she said. Stepped back, brushed her palms together like she had just finished taking out the trash. "Now you look like a human being." Amara stood completely still. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she did not scream. Her body had locked. Not submission. Shock. The kind of freeze that happens when the violation is so open, so brazen, that your nervous system simply cannot process it fast enough to act. Her hand rose slowly to her head. Her fingers found the damage, the rough, torn edges, the gaps, the places where her grandmother's work had been. Her art portfolio, the leather folder she had been building for her scholarship interview, slid off the edge of her desk and hit the floor. She did not reach for it. A girl in the front row covered her mouth with both hands. A boy near the window looked away. And in the back row, Reed Harper, a white kid who sat behind Amara every day, quietly raised his phone beneath the desk. His hands were shaking, but he pressed record. Ms. Carter finally moved. She crossed the room in 3 fast steps, put her hand on Amara's shoulder, and whispered, "Come with me, sweetheart. Let's go." Langford's voice cut across the room. "Simone, she's fine. Take your seat." Carter did not look at her. She guided Amara toward the door, and then Amara stopped right at the threshold. She turned her head just slightly and looked back at Langford. Her voice was quiet, measured. The voice of someone who had just been broken, but refused to stay down. "You just assaulted me," Langford scoffed, waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. The class was silent. 25 witnesses. Not one of them said a word. But in the back row, Reed Harper's phone was still recording. Ms. Carter walked Amara down the hallway to the nurse's office. Neither of them spoke. The only sound was Amara's sneakers on the tile and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. The nurse, a woman named Mrs. Elaine Porter, who had been at Ridgewood for years, looked up when they came in. She saw Amara's face first, red eyes, tear streaks. Then she saw the hair. Her hand went to her chest. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Amara sat down on the paper-covered exam table. The paper crinkled under her weight. She hugged her knees to her chest and stared at the wall. "She cut my braids," Amara said. Her voice was flat, hollow, like someone talking about something that happened to someone else. "She called them rope. She sniffed my hair. Then she cut them off. In front of everyone." Ms. Carter filled in the rest. Her own voice was shaking, not with sadness, but with the guilt of a woman who knew she should have moved sooner. She told the nurse everything. The scissors, the grabbing, the sniffing, the laughing, the 3 braids on the floor, the beads rolling under desks, the braid tossed under Amara's notebook like garbage. Mrs. Porter's face drained of color. She picked up the phone and called the front office. Within a short time, Principal Gregory Hale walked into the nurse's office. He was a tall man, thin, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of administrator who wore khaki pants every single day and spoke in a voice designed to make everything sound manageable. He looked at Amara. He looked at her hair, the jagged patches, the uneven tufts, the places where braids had been ripped instead of cut. He exhaled slowly through his nose, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Let's not blow this out of proportion." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "I'm sorry." "Let's not blow this out of proportion." Amara opened her mouth to speak, but Hale had already turned to Mrs. Porter. "I'll handle it from here." He walked out without looking at Amara again. He went straight to room 214, closed the door, stood across from Langford with his arms folded. "Victoria, that was a bit much." That was it. A bit much. Like she had given too much homework. Like she had kept the class 2 minutes past the bell. He did not suspend her. He did not write her up. He did not call the district. Instead, he told her to file an incident report, and he told her exactly how. frame it. Write it up as a grooming assistance, he said. Say the student's hair presented a hygiene concern, and you intervened to help her meet compliance. Langford nodded. She did not argue. She did not apologize. She sat down and started typing. A grooming assistance. That is what they called it. A woman who told an 18-year-old her hair smelled, called it rope, sniffed it in front of a laughing classroom, then cut it off with scissors. And the official record would say she was helping. Hale went back to his office and called grandmother Miriam. He used the voice, that practiced, measured, everything is fine voice. Mrs. Hayes, this is Principal Hale. I wanted to let you know there was a small issue today involving Amara and school policy. She's perfectly fine. Mrs. Langford simply helped her adjust her hair to meet our dress code guidelines. Silence on the other end. A long silence. The kind that makes the person on the other line shift in their chair. Then Miriam's voice. Low, slow, and cold enough to frost glass. What do you mean? Helped her adjust? What exactly did that woman do to my granddaughter's hair? Hale started talking about policy, about compliance, about procedures. He used words like minor incident and moving forward. Miriam hung up on him mid-sentence. She was at the school in a short time. She walked through the front doors like a woman walking into a fight she had been preparing for her entire life. Straight back, jaw set, purse over one shoulder. 63 years old, and not a single ounce of fear in her body. She found the nurse's office on her own. Nobody stopped her. Nobody offered to help. Nobody looked up. She pushed the door open and saw Amara. Her granddaughter was sitting on the exam table, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them. Her hair, the hair Miriam had braided with her own hands days ago, the hair she had threaded with stories and history and love, was butchered, chopped, uneven. Some patches barely half an inch long. One spot near her left temple was so jagged it looked torn, not cut. Miriam's chest caved in. She crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled Amara into her arms. She held her tight, rocked her. Amara's body shook against her grandmother's chest. Silent sobs, the kind that do not make noise because the person has already used up all their sound. Miriam held her for a long time. Then she stood up, and the grandmother was gone. In her place was something else. A woman who had been dismissed and diminished and overlooked for 6 decades and had learned exactly how to fight without raising her voice. She walked to the front office. Hale was at his desk. I want to see the woman who put scissors to my granddaughter's head, Miriam said. Her voice did not rise. It dropped. Right now. Hale shifted in his chair. Mrs. Hayes, I understand your frustration. Why don't we step into my office and... I didn't ask for your office. I asked for the woman who assaulted my grandchild. I can't allow that. It would be disruptive to the learning environment. Disruptive to the learning environment. A teacher had just sniffed a student's hair in front of a laughing classroom, called it rope, and cut it off with scissors. And the grandmother asking for accountability? She was the disruption. Miriam stared at him. Then she asked for the security camera footage. Hale shook his head. Our cameras don't cover individual classrooms. She asked for a formal complaint form. You can submit concerns through the district website. I can give you the link. She asked for Mrs. Langford's full name for her own records. I'm not able to share staff information. That's per district policy. She asked who she could speak to above him. You're welcome to contact the district office. I can provide a number. Every door closed, every request deflected, every question answered with a wall dressed up as procedure. Miriam stood in that hallway, surrounded by trophy cases and college pennants, and framed photos of smiling students, and realized something she had always known, but never felt this sharply. The system was not built to protect her granddaughter. It was built to protect itself. She pulled out her phone and called Selena. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Voicemail. Miriam's voice cracked for the first time all day. "Selena, you need to get to Ridgewood High right now. They cut Amara's hair. That woman, that teacher, she called it rope." She sniffed it. She made the whole class laugh. Then she cut her braids off in front of everyone. And this principal is standing here telling me to file a complaint on a website? He won't show me the cameras. He won't give me her name. "Baby, I need you here. Please call me back." She hung up, put the phone in her purse, wiped her eyes once, fast with the back of her hand, and went back to the nurse's office to sit with Amara. Selena did not get the message until late that night. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Something Hale did not see coming. Reed Harper, the white senior, who had been sitting in the back row of room 214, went home that afternoon and uploaded the video to his Instagram story. 12 seconds of shaky footage shot low from desk level. You could see Langford's hand gripping the braid. You could hear the scissors. You could hear her say, "Now you look like a human being." You could see Amara's shoulders trembling. He captioned it, "My teacher just did this to a girl in our class." His older sister saw it within an hour. She screen recorded it and posted it to Twitter with the words, "This happened today at Ridgewood High. A teacher cut a black student's braids off in class, called her hair rope. Where is the accountability?" By that evening, the video had been reposted hundreds of times. By the next morning, it had crossed thousands of shares. The comments came fast. Outrage, disbelief, parents tagging the school district, people tagging local news, lawyers offering pro bono help, civil rights organizations demanding answers. Reporter Lena Vargas at WBTV saw the post early the next morning. She called the school district's communications office before her first cup of coffee got cold. The district responded with a statement so generic it could have been written by a machine. "We are aware of a situation at Ridgewood High School and are reviewing the matter internally. The safety and well-being of our students is our top priority." Safety and well-being, their top priority. While a girl sat at home with butchered hair and a teacher sat in her classroom untouched. Online, a hashtag started to form. Slowly at first, then all at once. Hashtag Justice for Amara, and somewhere in the field, Selena Hayes finally checked her voicemail. A dark sedan pulled into the Ridgewood High School parking lot. It did not park in the visitor spot. It pulled right up to the front entrance and stopped. The driver's door opened. Selena Hayes stepped out. She was not in mom mode. Dark blazer, pressed black slacks, white collared shirt buttoned to the neck, hair pulled back tight, and hanging from a lanyard around her neck, catching the morning light, a gold detective's badge, North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. She had listened to her mother's voicemail late the night before, called Miriam back, then called Amara. Her daughter's voice was something she would never forget. Flat, distant, hollowed out, like a girl who had been emptied. Amara told her everything. The sniffing, the rope comment, the laughter, the scissors, the braid tossed on her desk like garbage. "Now you look like a human being." Selena did not sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table in the dark, watching the video on her phone. She watched it 4 times. Each time her hands got steadier. Not because the rage was fading, because it was turning into something colder, something sharper, something professional. By morning, she had filed a formal complaint with the State Department of Education, contacted the district's Title VI compliance office, and filed a police report for assault with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Now she was here. She walked through the front doors. Her heels clicked on the same polished floor Amara walked every morning. The receptionist looked up and saw the badge. Her eyes went wide. "Can I help you, ma'am? I'm Detective Selena Hayes, North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation." She let those words land, watched the receptionist's face shift, then added 5 more. "I'm also Amara Hayes' mother. The receptionist picked up the phone so fast she nearly knocked her coffee over. 2 minutes later, Selena was standing in Hale's office. He rose from his desk. His eyes went to the badge, then to her face. He recognized the last name. His mouth went dry. Selena did not sit down. She placed a manila folder on his desk. I've requested the district's full policy on physical contact with students. I've also requested the incident report Mrs. Langford filed, the one that calls what she did grooming assistants. I filed formal complaints with the state board and with local law enforcement. Hale shifted uncomfortably. Detective Hayes, I think we can resolve this internally. The teacher put scissors to my daughter's scalp without consent. She called her hair rope. She sniffed it in front of the class. She humiliated her in front of 25 students. Then she cut it off and told her she finally looked like a human being. Selena paused. Let the silence sit. That's not an internal matter. That's a crime. Hale sat back in his chair. The folder sat on his desk like a weight he could not lift. He had no words left. I want to see Mrs. Langford in this office now. He did not argue. He quietly picked up the phone and called room 214. A short time later, Mrs. Victoria Langford walked through the door carrying a coffee mug. Her face was calm, almost bored. She had been told a parent wanted to meet. She had her lines ready. She saw Selena, a black woman standing by the window, and made an assumption. The same assumption she always made. I understand you're upset, Langford began, setting her mug down with a practiced sigh. But your daughter was in clear violation of our dress code, and I was simply... Stop talking. The room went still. Langford blinked. Her mouth hung open mid-sentence. Selena turned to face her fully. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She reached up, took the badge from around her neck, and held it at eye level. The gold caught the overhead light. I'm not just her mother. I'm a detective with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. What you did to my daughter is on video. It's been seen by thousands of people. It's been reported to the State Board of Education, to local law enforcement, and to the district's Title VI office. You are currently the subject of a criminal complaint for assault. Langford's coffee mug was still in her hand. Her face went from calm to confused to white in under 10 seconds. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Selena stepped closer. One step. Just enough to make the air between them disappear. You called my daughter's hair rope. You sniffed her. You made children laugh at her. You cut her braids off. Braids her grandmother spent hours weaving with her own hands, and threw them on her desk like trash. Then you told her she finally looked like a human being. Silence. Complete silence. Hale did not breathe. Langford did not move. You don't get to touch my daughter. You don't get to touch any student. And you will answer for every single thing you did in that classroom. Langford's hand was shaking. The coffee in her mug trembled. A single drop spilled over the rim and hit the carpet. She looked at Hale for help. Hale was staring at his desk. Nobody was going to save her. Not this time. For the first time in 15 years, Victoria Langford had absolutely nothing to say. The silence in Hale's office lasted a long moment. It felt like an hour. Then Langford broke. I was just trying to enforce the dress code, she said. Her voice cracked. The confidence was gone. The sugary tone was gone. What was left sounded thin and desperate. I didn't mean any harm. Her hair was a distraction. I was doing my job. I've been teaching for 15 years and I have never... Stop! Selena held up one hand. You called a young woman's cultural hairstyle disgusting. You told her it smelled. You compared it to rope. You sniffed her hair in front of a classroom full of students and made them laugh at her. Then you physically altered her appearance without her consent, without her family's consent. In front of her peers. You didn't discipline her. You terrorized her. Langford's eyes welled up. But this was not guilt. This was fear. The kind that hits when you realize the ground beneath you has been hollow the entire time, and it just caved in. "I've been teaching for 15 years, she whispered. "I've never had a single complaint." Selena looked at her, steady, unblinking. "You've never had a complaint that was listened to. That's not the same thing." Langford looked at Hale for help. He was staring at his desk. His pen was in his hand, but he was not writing anything. He would not save her either. Nobody spoke. Selena picked up her folder. "You'll be hearing from the district, the state board, and law enforcement. I suggest you get an attorney." She turned and walked out of the office. She did not slam the door. She did not need to. The click of the latch behind her was louder than any slam could have been. By that afternoon, the video had crossed hundreds of thousands of views. The school district's switchboard was jammed. Every line. Parents calling, reporters calling, attorneys calling. The voicemail inbox was full by midday. Superintendent Eleanor Quinn, a white woman who had held the position for years without a single public controversy, called an emergency meeting. She had watched the video. She had read the police report. She had seen the hashtag. And she had received more than a dozen calls from board members in a short time. Everyone using the word liability. By mid-afternoon, the decisions were made. Mrs. Victoria Langford was placed on immediate administrative leave, suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending a full investigation by the district and the State Department of Education. Her classroom was locked. Her personal items were boxed. She was escorted from the building by a security officer while students watched through hallway windows. Principal Gregory Hale was placed under formal review. The charges: failure to report a staff-on-student incident, attempting to minimize the event, instructing a teacher to file a falsified incident report, and obstructing a family's right to file a formal complaint. He was reassigned to the district office pending investigation. His desk at Ridgewood was cleared soon after. Officer Derek Cole arrived later that day to take Langford's formal statement. She sat across from him in the conference room, hands folded, mascara smudged, repeating the same line. "I was just trying to help her comply with the dress code." Cole wrote it down. Then he informed her that charges of simple assault were being formally considered by the district attorney's office. Langford's face crumbled. She asked if she needed a lawyer. Cole told her that was her right. Meanwhile, across town, Ms. Simone Carter sat at her kitchen table with a blank legal pad and a pen that shook in her hand. She had been silent in that classroom. She had stood by the supply cabinet and watched it happen. She had frozen. And that silence had eaten her alive. Now she was writing a formal statement. 4 pages. She admitted she had been too afraid to intervene, afraid of losing her job, afraid of Langford, afraid of Hale. Then she provided something the investigators did not expect. Context. This was not the first time Langford had targeted a student of color. Carter named 3 prior incidents. The boy with the sneakers. The biracial girl moved to the back row. The essay marked too heavy-handed. All reported informally. All dismissed by Hale. All buried. She wrote down every word Langford said before, during, and after the cutting. Every single word. Including the ones Langford would later deny. Her testimony was devastating. And it was only the beginning. The investigation did not stop at Langford's classroom. It ripped the door wide open. Within days, the State Department of Education launched a formal audit of Ridgewood High School's disciplinary records, going back several years. What they found was damning. Black and brown students at Ridgewood received dress code violations at 4 times the rate of white students. 4 times. And when investigators dug deeper, they found that the overwhelming majority of those violations, 81%, were issued by a single teacher, Victoria Langford. The violations ranged from hairstyle complaints to clothing infractions to vague notes about personal presentation. Almost none of them resulted in parental notification. Almost none of them were reviewed by administration. They were simply filed stamped, and forgotten. A paper trail of bias that no one had bothered to follow. The Crown Act, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, had been law in North Carolina for years. It explicitly protected race-based hairstyles, including braids, locks, twists, and protective styles, from discrimination in schools and workplaces. Langford's actions were not just a violation of district policy, they were a violation of state law. And then came the cameras. Hale had told Miriam that security cameras did not cover individual classrooms. That was technically true. But investigators discovered that the hallway camera mounted directly outside room 214 captured something critical. Footage of Langford stepping out of her classroom that morning, looking both ways down the hall, and pulling her door shut before walking back inside. Minutes before the cutting began, she closed the door on purpose. She did not want anyone walking by to see what she was about to do. That footage suggested premeditation, and it destroyed Langford's claim. The incident was a spontaneous reaction to a dress code issue. She had planned it, and she had made sure no one could stop her. The media did not wait for the investigation to finish. Lena Vargas at WBTV ran a feature segment that evening. It opened with the student-recorded video, pixelated slightly for broadcast, but the audio was untouched. You could hear the scissors. You could hear Langford's voice saying, "Now you look like a human being." You could hear the silence of 25 students too stunned to speak. Then came the interview with grandmother Miriam. She sat in her living room, hands folded, back straight. The same couch where she braided Amara's hair every week, her voice was steady and clear. "Those braids weren't just hair," she said. "They were history. They were family. They were the same pattern my mother wore when she marched for her right to be treated like a human being. And a woman who calls herself a teacher looked at my granddaughter and told her that history was disgusting." The segment went national. CNN picked it up the next morning. MSNBC ran it by midday. By the weekend, #JusticeForAmara was trending across every major platform. The video had been viewed over 2 million times. And then other parents started coming forward. A mother in the district told reporters that Langford had sent her son home for wearing sneakers she deemed distracting. Another parent said her biracial daughter had been moved to the back of the classroom because her curly hair supposedly blocked other students' view of the whiteboard. A third parent, a father, said Langford had told his daughter that her creative writing essay was too heavy-handed and suggested she write about something more universal. One by one, the stories piled up. The pattern was not subtle. It was not ambiguous. It was systematic. The school district held a press conference. Superintendent Eleanor Quinn stood behind a podium with the district seal and read a prepared statement. Her voice was tight. Her hands gripped the edges of the lectern. "The incident involving a student at Ridgewood High School was reprehensible," she said. "It does not reflect the values of this district. We are conducting a full review of our dress code policies across all schools, and we will take whatever action is necessary to ensure that every student feels safe, respected, and protected in our classrooms." Reporters shouted questions. Quinn answered 3 of them, then walked off stage. Weeks later, the legal consequences landed. Mrs. Victoria Langford was formally charged with simple assault and violation of the North Carolina Crown Act. She faced up to 1 year in county jail, a fine and permanent revocation of her teaching license. Her attorney filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that Langford's actions constituted a well-intentioned disciplinary response to a legitimate dress code concern. The motion included character references from 2 former colleagues and a letter from Langford herself expressing deep regret. The judge, a black woman named Judge Ava Sinclair, reviewed the video evidence, the student testimony, the hallway camera footage, and Carter's 4-page statement. She denied the motion in under 10 minutes. "There is nothing well-intentioned," Judge Sinclair said, looking directly at Langford, "about putting scissors to a student's head against her will. There is nothing disciplinary about sniffing a young woman's hair and calling it rope in front of her peers. And there is nothing in any dress code in this country that authorizes a teacher to physically alter a student's appearance without consent." The courtroom was silent. Langford pleaded no contest to avoid a trial. The sentence: 12 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory completion of a racial sensitivity and cultural competency program, and a permanent ban from teaching in any public school in the state of North Carolina. Her teaching license was revoked on the spot. She left the courthouse through a side door. Reporters were waiting at the front. Principal Gregory Hale did not make it to the hearing. He had been formally demoted weeks earlier and transferred to an administrative role at the district warehouse, a windowless office with a metal desk and no staff. He resigned weeks later without a public statement, no farewell email, no retirement party. He simply disappeared. The district moved fast after that. Mandatory anti-discrimination training was implemented for every staff member across all 43 schools in the district. The dress code policy was rewritten from scratch, this time with input from parents, students, and civil rights advisors. The new policy explicitly protected natural hairstyles, braids, locks, twists, Bantu knots, and all cultural hair practices. It was published on the district website and printed in every student handbook, and buried in the footnotes of the new policy was a single line that had not been there before. "No school employee shall physically alter a student's appearance for any reason." It should not have needed to be written, but now it was there, in black and white. Months later, Sunday morning again. Charlotte, North Carolina. The same brick duplex, the same small porch, the same gospel music drifting from the television like a slow, warm heartbeat. Amara Hayes sat on the floor cushion between her grandmother's knees. Miriam's fingers moved through Amara's hair, slower now, more gently than before. The hair had grown back. Not all the way. Not yet, not the full length that it had been that morning when she walked into Ridgewood High with her braids swinging. But enough. Enough to section. Enough to twist. Enough to braid. And Miriam braided. The same pattern. The same parting. The same beads clicking softly at the ends. Amara sat with her leather-bound notebook open in her lap. She was drawing again. But the drawings had changed. Something inside her had shifted. The buildings were gone. The imaginary faces were gone. In their place was something real, a charcoal portrait. A young black woman standing tall in front of a school building. Her braids were long and full, flowing past her shoulders, each one detailed down to the individual twist. Behind her stood a second figure, a woman in a blazer. Badge on her chest, hand resting on the girl's shoulder. At the bottom of the page, in careful hand lettering, 3 words: "My mom is my hero." The art scholarship came through. Full ride. School of the Arts. Starting in the fall. Amara's admissions portfolio included that portrait and an essay. 5 pages about the day a teacher tried to cut away her identity. About what it felt like to hear her hair called rope. About what it felt like to sit in a chair while a classroom full of people watched and said nothing. And about why that day did not make her smaller. It made her art sharper. It made her voice louder. It made her certain, absolutely certain, of what she wanted to spend her life doing. Selena watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, badge on the counter beside her. She had requested a transfer to the Civil Rights Division of the SBI months ago. It had been approved. She did not want to just respond to cases like Amara's anymore. She wanted to prevent them. She looked at her daughter. at the braids taking shape under Miriam's hands, at the drawing in Amara's lap. She did not say anything. Some moments need no words. The ripple did not stop with the Hayes family. The state legislature used the case as a catalyst. A proposed amendment to the Crown Act, informally dubbed Amara's Law, was introduced. It would require every public school in North Carolina to maintain explicit written protocols against hair-based discrimination, mandate staff training on cultural hairstyles, and require immediate reporting of any incident involving physical contact with a student's hair or appearance. The bill passed its first committee vote unanimously. It was expected to reach the full legislature by fall. Ms. Simone Carter, the teaching assistant who had frozen in room 214 and then written 4 pages that helped bring Langford down, was promoted. She accepted a lead teacher position at a different school across the district. On her first day, she launched an after-school program called Crown Club. Every Wednesday afternoon, girls of color gathered in her classroom to learn about the history of natural hairstyles. They braided each other's hair. They studied photos of women who marched in braids and locks and twists. They talked about what it means to wear your identity on your head and never apologize for it. Carter never froze again. Ever. And Reed Harper, the white kid in the back row who raised his phone when no one else raised their voice, was recognized at graduation. The principal read his name, and the auditorium erupted. His mother told a reporter afterward, wiping her eyes, "I raised him to stand up for people, not just stand by." Reed's older sister, the one who had reposted the video to Twitter, was sitting in the 3rd row. She did not say anything. She just clapped until her palms were red. Back in Charlotte, on that Sunday morning, months after everything changed, Miriam finished the last braid. She clicked the final bead into place and patted Amara's shoulder twice. There. Amara reached up and touched the braids, ran her fingers down the length of one, felt the beads at the end. Amara smiled. "Perfect," she said. And it was. Absolutely perfect. Nah, the scariest thing in that classroom was not the scissors. It was the silence. 25 people watched, and nobody said a word. Evil does not win because bad people exist. It wins because good people stay quiet. That's the lesson right there.